All right, it's 101. We are going to kick off today. Super excited to be here. I am Nikki Rosenberg. I am a savvy STR real estate agent for Northeast Florida and very honored to be hosting the webinar here with you guys today. Thank you so much for joining. We love to provide value to you, teach you guys things, connect you to people in the industry, and really just help you level up your short-term rental business. And whether you're just getting started in short-term rentals and you're just starting to learn, maybe you don't have a property yet, or maybe you just bought your first property, or maybe you're starting to scale, this is really for you. Today, we're going to be talking all about direct bookings. We've got some incredible content for you guys today. So thank you so much. A little bit about me. I have been in the short-term rental industry since 2005. I started when I was 17 years old. I grew up in St. Augustine, a very tourist town. We now have about 10 million visitors a year, and I just kind of landed in the hospitality industry. So Airbnb did not exist back then. We only had direct booking and VRBO. So I am a huge, huge fan of direct booking. So I'm really excited to be bringing our guest today, Gil Chan, and all the content and value that he delivers. I also own a vacation rental management company called Stela. We're in many, many different markets across the Southeast and expanding. And, I love really building direct bookings, building relationships with guests. And I think it's really the way to go if you're trying to build something that you can depend on and that your brand, is going to outlast these channels, Airbnb, VRBO, the channels that are there, they're really not in your best interest. They're in their own pocket's best interest. So getting started with direct bookings is the time. It is the time for you to take action on this and to just start little by little. And today we're going to give you all the steps and resources and people that you need in your corner to really help you get to a place where you feel confident starting getting direct bookings and taking those to a higher percentage of your overall bookings. So I am super, super excited to introduce our guest today. He is the founder of Crafted Stays, okay, the founder and CEO. He's a fellow host. He also has his own properties in the Smokies and in Branson. He's been a product director and founders at 6 other Silicon Valley startups before launching Crafted Stays. And Crafted Stays helps hosts build high converting websites that were previously only available to larger property managers. So I want you guys to give it up, a round of applause for our host today, Gil Chan. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, awesome. I don't know if my video is showing up on your end. Is it showing up on your
No,
side? Let me
nope.
see. Okay, let me turn that on. Let me
There
give me
you
a
are.
second. There you go. There I am. Awesome. Well, it's great to be here, Nikki. That was quite an introduction. But yeah, I'm excited to be here to talk all things direct bookings. I think we're starting to share screens. Do you guys see the screen on your side? There we go. I think I see it
Can you see
now.
it? Good.
Yeah, I
Great.
can. Yeah, so I'm delighted to be here alongside Nikki. So as Nikki mentioned, I'm the founder of Crafted Stays. This is my 7th startup, and this is actually my first one being the founder as well too. So I'm super excited about this. As Nikki mentioned, I am a host myself. I have properties in Branson and in Gatlinburg and Smoky Mountains as well too. And that kind of led me into creating Crafted Stays in the first place. So to give you guys a little bit of background, I started as part of that big wave when everybody was coming online. They were getting their properties, this huge influx of hosts coming in. But in my first year, I would say 90% of my revenues were coming from Airbnb. At that time, VRBO was just picking up steam. And anyone here that's a host, they probably know that VRBO, it takes a little bit of time to kind of gain the momentum. Now it's a larger portion, but we still felt like we had a lot of revenues coming from one entity, Airbnb majority, and we wanted to invest into direct bookings. So I try to learn as much as possible on direct bookings. I try to build our website. I'm an owner as user myself, and I just felt like there wasn't a lot of great options out there. I either had what owner res provided, which was a pretty basic site, or If I wanted anything better, I would have to hire an agency to build it and spend six to $10,000 to build it out. So I decided to actually try to tackle that. I built my own WordPress site to start off with. People loved it. But I realized my day job was in e-commerce, and if you wanted to build a e-commerce store, you wouldn't hire an agency to do it. You would sign up for a Shopify account and put your products on there, choose a different template, and you can build your own online store in the same day. So I'm taking all of my learnings, and it made me realize that like in our industry, there wasn't anything like that. So I took all my learnings in e-commerce and I built the first ever direct booking platform. So right now we're integrated with the top five PMSs, Onerous, Guesty, Hospitable, Hostaway, and Hostfully. We are probably adding a few more, but not too many because it takes a lot of time and effort for us to integrate into some of these. But all in all, what we're trying to do is really try to simplify direct bookings. And that's why I'm here with Nikki today to really talk about the tools that you guys have available and how to really approach direct bookings. I'm also the host of the Book Solid podcast, where we bring on hosts every single week to talk about direct bookings. We talk about email marketing, we talk about SEO, how to design your place to drive more direct bookings, all the little kind of niche little things on really how to drive more direct bookings. So again, I'm really delighted to be here with Nikki to share the stage with her to really kind of walk through some of the foundational pieces that you guys should be thinking about as you're transitioning from being dependent on Airbnb to be independent and be able to drive your own marketing. So maybe Nikki, to the next slide there, for many hosts, a lot of our bookings are 100% Airbnb or VRBO. And for the first year, that's actually really good because what other asset can you buy, put into practice, and start getting revenues right away? If you start a restaurant, if you start any brick and mortar business, even an online store, it takes a lot of time for you to get any sizable revenue. And so our industry is very unique where Airbnb VRBO allows us to launch our business instantly and get revenues. But at the same time, we become very reliant on that. And probably over the last 2 years, I've noticed a lot of hosts now trending towards really figuring out how to become more independent because what we don't want to do is end up one day getting delisted from page one all the way to page 12 and not be able to meet your revenue targets or your mortgage payments, even worse. So we're here to really try to help people have the tools to be successful. So kind of like Nikki, to the next slide there, why direct bookings matters in the first place. So like I mentioned, first off, is really less reliant on the OTAs. You want to be able to withstand any changes in their algorithm, the choices of marketing that they do. So like if you remember some of you folks, they did this OMG campaign a couple years back where they start talking about unique stays, and that marketing tactic changes the way that consumers look at Airbnb, and we don't want to definitely be dependent on them. Two is that you can have increased revenues either by saving your fees yourself or just driving up more occupancies. Number three is really sustained booking. So really owning your business, being able to drive traffic yourself. And kind of the fourth point there is really to fill calendar gaps. When you own your direct bookings, you don't have to drive down your price in order to get that weekend filled or those gap day filled. You can start to market them yourself, either through advertising, through email blasts, posting on your social. When you have availability, you just have a lot more control over your marketing. Again, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time with our properties that we manage. If it doesn't take off right away on Airbnb or VRBO when you first launch it, you're in big trouble if you don't have another, way to capture guests. And so owning the customer, owning that data, having a relationship with them, is really it's so important. And like I said, when I introduced myself, I came from a time in the vacation rental industry where that's all that we had. 75% of our bookings were direct bookings and about 20 to 30% came from VRBO. And so, that's kind of that's all I knew going into the vacation rental business was that you had to have direct bookings. And, our guests loved us so much. Like every time they'd come back, they'd bring us gifts and like you'd have all these repeat customers and like you knew them by name, you knew their family, you knew their pets, you know, um, and you felt really good about who was staying in your property. A lot of times they left it better than, how it was when they arrived, which that's another thing is like I find that when you're so dependent on like Airbnb, you're just churning and burning these people, and sometimes we're really rough on the properties. And if you have guests that like, know your brand, love your brand, and want to keep coming back, they'll like I just had a guest recently that stayed, it was a snowbird here. They bought like a whole new patio set for one of our properties. And like just stuff like that where like they really leave the property because they look at it as like this is my place that I come to vacation. And so there's so much respect given, and it goes both ways. So I definitely, I am a huge fan of not relying on Airbnb or VRBO. Again, they don't have your best interest in mind. They are corporations, and of course, they do bring us a lot of business. And we're not going to abandon them. But it would be great just to, know that you're going to get booked over and over by your same repeat guest, and they're going to take great care of the property.
Yeah, yeah. I 100% agree with you. When we get our direct bookings, I do remember the one time our Schleg lock decided to break was during a direct booking. And thank gosh that it was a direct booking. Like I didn't have to worry that I was gonna possibly get dinged on a 5-star review and having to bend over backwards. Like the guest actually was very understanding them being a direct booking, but I also felt like I can just take care of them and not have to like almost put aside the review and just really take care of the guests. And
Yeah,
I 100% agree with you that the quality of guest I find has actually been better with direct than some of the ones in the OTAs.
absolutely. I agree.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next slide and talk about some of the foundational pieces of direct booking. So at Craft to Stays, we think of like these four pillars of direct bookings. We call it direct booking quadrant. There is really one, knowing your brand, your guest avatar. Two, figuring out what channels is going to be most effective for your type of customer. Three is then really figuring out what that whole entire funnel looks like. You can talk about it as a funnel, you can talk about it as a journey, but how does that person go from seeing you for the first time and then really converting, which is kind of the last part there, is really then your website. How do you represent your website? What should you really care about as part of your website to make sure that it converts really well? So we're going to dive into each one of these. I'm going to have Nikki kind of help me out along the way, but kind of moving on to kind of the first one there is really knowing your guests there. And these are some of the things that you really should think about. I find way too often people will go down this direct booking journey and they will try to develop their site and just try to make it pretty. They'll try to kind of focus on that. But really, it starts way before that. And a lot of you folks, I'm sure, have spent a ton of time doing market research, trying to figure out how should you monetize your place, how should you design your place, how should you talk about your place. And that also goes into probably more importantly, how you represent yourself on the direct side as well too. Because the folks that will find you direct, they really try to really resonate with the brand. Because if you notice, Airbnb, it's more about affordable stays that they can stay with and some of the amenities there. And they really care more about those types of facts. But the people that book on direct really have an affinity towards you. So you really have to understand who the guest is, what their demographics is. That could be age, income level, family status, their preferences. Why are they traveling? Why are they traveling? What experiences are they looking for? What amenities are they looking for? What travel styles do they have? Are they traveling by car? Are they traveling by plane? Those types of things really make a difference on there. Their booking habits, their frequencies, their travel seasons, their budgets, and then lastly, kind of where they are, the channels, and we'll kind of dive into that. And I mention this because what you really want to do is really understand your guests so intimately. Maybe you give them a name, you don't need to, but really try to understand who are you designing your portfolio and your properties for so that when you bring them onto your homepage, for instance, you're speaking directly to them. When they land on their homepage, they know this is actually a place that I want to stay in. This also matters on the different channels that you're at because different people are in different channels. If you're targeting, for instance, a business traveler, you may be spending a lot more time on LinkedIn if you're targeting social media. But if you're trying to target 20 to 30s, the couples that like to go hiking, TikTok might be a better place than Instagram even. So really trying to figure out who that ideal guest is super, super important. The first thing that if you're kind of lost in saying, okay, I cater to all these different people, I think the first thing to really pay attention to is, for me, I'm a data guy. So I look at that first. The things I look at is running reports on the number of stays, the cities that people are coming in from. I will actually even do a full data dump on my entire reviews and I'll put that into ChatGPT. I'll put all this information in ChatGPT and I will use it to help me define who my ideal guest avatar is. And so we've done this personally for our portfolio. And then we found out that a lot of our stays are multi-generational stays. They're usually larger than 8 people from most parts of our kind of our larger properties. They talk about certain amenities that they like. It also helps us tune how we make our properties better as well too. So the better that you know your guest avatar, the better that you're able to create a better product for them. You're better to message them and really kind of fine tune that over time. But for me, it really starts here. Nikki, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this one on your side.
Yeah, I think just understanding your market, like for example, I'm in a traditional beach market, where most of my properties are. We have about 60 here, and it is very similar to what you said. It's that multi-generational travel, the grandparents, the parents, and the grandkids. Whereas, if you're in an urban market like Miami or Atlanta or those types of areas, it's going to be totally different type of demographic that's traveling there. So they're going to want different things, and different size units and the how they get to it is huge. Learning, do they fly in? Are they drive to markets? Learning all those things are going to really help you tailor, which is why you need experts in each market because every market there's so many nuances. And having partners in the market is key as you're doing all of this due diligence.
Yeah, I think like another example and why I stress like the frequency of travel. If you're in those vacation markets, if you're in Florida or in the Smokies, a lot of folks will actually visit there annually. They may come every year, every other year, and that changes the way that you may want to focus your attention. I think this actually probably is a good transition to kind of the next set is really the channels that you're really in and kind of the strategies to deploy. If you're in these kind of vacation heavy markets there, you'll find that the same travelers may come to you multiple times. And if you start to recognize that, if you find that, oh, people have visit when they book with you, they said, I've been to Gatlinburg a few times already. We love coming here. These are people that you want to really nurture. And kind of one of the most effective ways for any of our vacation rental market owners is really to start to capture those emails when people are staying at your properties, when they're booking with you, and be able to remarket to them. That's probably like for me, one of the foundational pieces for any type of vacation rental, but more specifically, if you're in a vacation rental market where you're having a lot of annual visitors that come back year after year, or maybe every other year, you really want to spend a lot of time on nurturing that email campaign. Um, if you're in other markets, if for instance, if you're in kind of the MTR space or business travelers, again, you might want to pay more attention to LinkedIn as a way to target those customers. You may invest into CRMs and other things that we'll kind of get into, but you really want to. I think the higher level point is really understand who your guest is and figure out where are they spending their time. What's that first place that they're searching for, and really how do you get in front of them, maybe even before they're starting to plan their travels there, so that you are top of mind. You are the person that they're coming to, or thinking about, or pinning, or saving there. You want to really be ahead of it so that they're not going to Airbnb as the first place to discover a property. They're coming to you first here. And there's a lot of more kind of, I'm not saying generic, but there's a lot of like say for instance like paid ads. You can do that against different types of travelers there, but those are types of things that you kind of may want to mature into after you have a strong foundation there. Again, I don't know if you have anything to add there on that.
No, I love this. I mean, I think you did a great job here. This is, if it depends on what level you're at, but I really, we talked a little bit, Gil, about this yesterday of, having that local presence. You know, so many people they come to an area and they go to the same places over and over again, the little coffee shops, the restaurants, the bars, and having partnerships in the community goes really far because now you essentially have salespeople and advocates out there promoting your business and vice versa. You also want to give to them and not just take, but it's give to them first. Like, hey, how can I help your business grow? I have these vacation rental properties. I'd love to promote your business. Maybe we could even offer a discount for our guests. Creating those little collaborations, they can really generate a ton of business because the people that are already there are gonna probably come back and you're able to essentially build salespeople through collaborations that are out there talking about your properties.
Yeah, I can't stress like the channel stuff enough because it makes a huge difference on really attracting the right people. And you can get really niche. I had a podcast guest on our show that they were really into fishing and they had a property that was lakeside and they had boat slips and they were really targeting anglers there. And they were really good at being inside those local Facebook groups. And when people were asking about where to stay, what to check out, they were able to present themselves. And just through Facebook groups alone, they were able to drive a significant amount of direct bookings. I think there were over 50% direct booking just on being active on those Facebook groups. So don't think like, oh, if I niche myself too far down or I double down on like one specific path, like maybe I'm missing out on other stuff. It's actually probably the other way around where you want to iterate, you want to test out different things. But if you find something that really works, try to figure out like what are the ingredients that makes it so effective? How do you find more of them? How do you scale that? Blog is
Mhm.
another example of that. If you're in a very niche town where maybe there's not a lot of people spending time on advertising or there's not a lot of resources of things to do on a smaller town, you can actually get really effective on SEO because you're not in a very competitive space on Google. Maybe you're in a town that's maybe an hour drive from a metro area and there's actually some unique attractions nearby, like Nikki mentioned, really work with those attractions, but also you can start to generate blog content on those so that when people are thinking about staying in here, what to do, your page is popping up on the top there. So again, make sure that you know who your ideal guest avatar is, why they're staying, where they're looking, how they actually discover different things, and figure out how do you get in front of them in whatever way possible. Awesome. All right. And then that kind of drives us through really funnels there. It's not enough just to get in front of them. They're likely going to need to be nurtured over a period of time. So as you're thinking about the entire guest experience there, you want to think of it as a funnel. You probably heard this before. Very likely it'll take 8 different touch points and maybe even more for someone to make a purchase or booking or whatever that may be. So what you want to do is one, you want to drive them traffic. You want to be aware of them, but you don't want to leave it at that. After you have all those foundational pieces in place, you really want to find some way to capture that lead, make it so that you can actually reach out to that person again and start to nurture them over time and eventually be able to convert them. And that lead capture can be an email. And that's probably the most effective way to really nurture someone is if you're able to collect their email. If it's someone that's staying at your property, if you could be using something like StayFi or even just playing QR codes to be able to capture them. If you're on your homepage, you can have pop-ups that offer them X% off their next stay or a chance to win a free stay and really get their email in there so that you have the ability to target them. And that targeting could be other emails, but it also could be ads as well too. If you collect, and not a lot of people do this, but if you collect their emails, you can actually feed that into Facebook and the other ad platforms and be able to retarget them to come back. Not a lot of people do this. Maybe only the folks that are in e-commerce or in digital marketing really know about some of these tactics, but that is a very good, effective way. You can also pixel them. It's a little bit less effective now after iOS, I forget what number it was, but after their change, I think it was iOS 14, they made it harder for people to track. You can still pixel them, and if they're on a browser, when they're on Facebook, they'll start to see ads on your specific property. So they're starting to see you in more and more places. They're thinking about you more. So what you're trying to aim to do is really stay on top of mind there, and eventually convert them through a web page. So Nikki, I don't know if you have anything to specifically add to this one.
I actually did not know that you could feed your emails into Facebook and retarget. That's really cool.
Yeah, and there's actually some neat things around retargeting. Slight tangent here. One of the things that we do is we've collected a couple hundred emails in StayFi, and what we've done is we target them, but what we also done is create lookalike audiences. So we'll take this 100 set of emails and we'll feed it into Meta, Facebook, and Meta will then analyze all these different profiles and try to figure out what is what is the resemblance of this persona. And what they'll do is they'll try to then target those lookalike audiences there. So they'll look at geographic area, where are those people kind of centered around, what are their likes? It could be hiking, it could be fishing, it could be whatever. And what you're able to do is then leverage Facebook and all they know and all the data that they know about each individual profile and target new people to come to your property there. And this is a very highly effective way to run ads. If you run ads without doing this, what you're doing is you're allowing Facebook to basically go to the wider net, figure out who the ad should be surfaced to and whether or not they're clicking through or staying on the page. And they do this thousands and thousands of times before Facebook knows, oh, when I'm running this ad for this company, this is the target market. But if you feed an email list, it already
Mhm.
knows who you're trying to target.
Wow, that's powerful. The lookalike
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah. We
I'm
have an
definitely gonna
article
have
on that.
to. You do?
Yeah. Yeah, we have an article. If you go to craftedstays.co, there's a blog, and you just type in lookalike in the search,
Okay.
you'll find the blog article where we actually walk through each and every step of pulling your list, segmenting that list. So what you want to do is you're not just including your entire StayFi list, but you want to do it by market or property. So that that way Meta is able to understand these are your Florida markets, these are my Branson markets, and really create different lookalike audiences because it's unlikely
Mm,
that it's the same person going to all of these different places. And so if
yeah.
you're able to segment them and then create lookalike audiences for each one of your property groups, then you're able to run much, much more effective ads. And you can run ads specifically for that property so that maybe the image on there, the thumbnail image is specifically for that property.
Yeah. For collecting emails, is there any other options besides StayFi? I mean, obviously you get their email when they book most of the time, but is there any other effective ways for that?
I've seen some people kind of do it more manually where they're collecting emails via a QR code, like you scan this QR
Mm,
code to log onto the Wi-Fi, and it's just really a form that leads them to the Wi-Fi password. It doesn't really prohibit them from like sharing that same password effectively. But that's
right.
a cost or no cost way of doing something like that.
Got
Um,
it.
I think I think there's a few things that are kind of close to what StayFi is doing. I've seen a lot of folks more recently doing welcome guides and the sorts where you're able to download your welcome guide. Um, and like, I think Happy Guest does this as well too, where you're downloading a welcome guide and you're able to share that welcome guide with anyone in your stay. And when you
Mm,
share them, they're collecting your emails on there, and hopefully you're providing valuable content in those guides that makes them feel like it's worthwhile to give up their emails. Um,
hmm.
but that's another thing that I've been kind of like over the last, I would say 12 months, I've been seeing more of.
Yeah. Okay. Great. This is good content, Gil. Amazing.
Well, we end up having to we bring on all these fabulous hosts that has done all these different tactics, and everybody does it a little bit different. And that's what I really love about our industry is that we all come to this industry not from that same road. We're coming from very, very different paths. So some of us have digital marketing skills, some of us has like small brick and mortar skills, some of us are like rolling up our sleeves, and maybe they've been even a nurse before, and they all have different skills. But when we come into this world, we try to figure out like how do we apply these skills in the best way we can. And that's why I
Yeah.
really love about this industry is that there's not one way to do this. Yes,
True.
there's works, there's tips and tricks and all these different things, but there's no secret recipe. We're all in different markets. We all have our own tactics, and I'm in groups with hundreds of Smokies owners, and we all do things a bit differently, and we get to learn from each other. And I'm blessed to know that like in our space, we're not like even though we're next to each other, we're not competitive to a degree that we're like gatekeeping information. We're trying to share
Right.
information. We're trying to help each other. So I just love talking to other hosts and seeing kind of like how do we learn and grow with each other.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely this a lot of collaboration that happens in the short-term rental world. And I think partially because the industry just blew up so fast, everybody's just like, whoa, like it's just kind of exciting and shocking and also, you know, I don't know, it just kind of gives this, you're right, there's no standards, there's no right or wrong way. There's things that maybe sometimes work better depending on what your goals are. But yeah, I've never met anybody in the industry that didn't want to share um, something with me. So that's a beautiful part of this business for sure.
Yeah, we're in a special place for sure. Awesome. Kind of like to our last topic is really around conversion there is, and this is one of my favorite topic. I'm biased, of course, but it's really around building out your site. You don't have to use Crafted Stays. You don't have to use us. But I do want to kind of walk through some of the things that you should be looking for if you're hiring an agency, if you're doing yourself, if you're maybe even going on Squarespace and Wix and like trying to like pull things together. These are some of the things that we think about, that we obsess over about, and that you should be really paying attention to. So really the first thing is really around site performance. If a guest lands on your direct booking site and the page takes too long to load, they're going to bounce. We saw this a lot, or I saw this a lot in e-commerce where site load times was very correlated on kind of the bounce rates there. So a lot of the e-commerce platforms, they really spend a lot of time fine tuning their sites to make sure that it loads really, really fast. So for instance, some of the things that we do at Crafted Stays is whenever we download a picture from the PMS, we'll convert it 4 times over. We'll have 2 desktop versions, a tablet version, and a mobile version. That way, if you're looking at it from a large screen, it looks really good. It looks high quality. But if you're on a mobile device, even if you brought in a high quality image, you couldn't see it with the amount of pixels on there. So what we try to do is really optimize for speed time, like load times there. So you really want to make sure that your pages load really fast, your images load really fast. Other things that we do is when we're loading a video, for instance, a lot of people nowadays are having these really beautiful aerial shots on their hero pictures. So what we do is we actually load a background image first, and the image loads really fast. And then if you're on a mobile device and it takes maybe 10 seconds for that video to actually load, we will then replace the video once available there. So no one's ever looking at a blank hero image there. So we obsess over like some of those small little details there to really make sure that a guest has a good experience and they're not likely to bounce afterwards. Um, we do other things specifically around mobile responsiveness. We try to avoid heavy animations. We try to do what we call progressive loading, which is like loading content as people go down the page so that you're not downloading the entire page content all at once there. And we try to really make sure that the mobile experience is is a really good one, which kind of leads me to kind of the next slide there is really around functionality. So one of the things that we try to do on all of our templates, so no matter which template you use, we always try to have a very good booking flow. So being able to show your availability and have people click around on there. I see way too often where if someone's building a site on Squarespace and Wix, you don't, for some of the PMSs, you don't have the ability to have that search bar on the very top of the screen. That's a very, very important attribute. If you're building a direct booking website, you need to have that search bar there. There's two reasons why. One is that it signals to the guests that this is a booking website. This is the main reason why you're visiting the page. And two, you're reducing the friction for them to find their stay. And you're always trying to figure out, what does that booking flow look like? How do I move person down through the search page to the property page to the checkout? So we really want to make sure that you have that booking search bar on the very top of the page. For us, we obsess over this stuff. So what we'll do is we'll optimize it for mobile. So if you're looking at your homepage on a desktop, you'll see that full search bar where it asks you, where do you want to go? What days do you want to travel, and how many people, and maybe how many pets? And we'll have that all in a line. But on a mobile device, that's not a great experience because you're really compressing all that, and everything's like really hard to tap into. So what we've done is on mobile, we have a very different experience where it feels very native to them. So for instance, we'll have a button that's there, and we'll have a little image of it that says find a stay. And when you click on that, it brings a drawer up that is very particular on mobile. And it only does it on mobile. And then if, for instance, you don't tap on that button, you scroll down the page, you find out what markets they're in, what makes them special, a little bit about the host, we pin that find a stay button on the top of the page. So if at any point the content resonates with them, they're able to hit find a stay, and it would bring up the drawer there. So those small little interactions makes a huge difference, because we found that 46% of our traffic is coming from mobile devices. So on our side, we actually design sometimes even mobile first in some of the flows there. Nikki, I don't know if you have anything to add on this one. I went pretty
No,
deep.
I'm learning on this one. It's
Yeah,
great stuff.
yeah. And then kind of the last thing there is like we want to make sure that when you're designing, kind of like the next slide there, when you're designing your direct booking site, you really want it to be tightly integrated with your PMS there. So you want to make sure that you have all the latest property information, the latest rates and availabilities, the fees and such. So for us, we actually pull all that information directly from the PMS. You're not creating individual property pages on your own. Everything is being pulled, and then in some cases synchronized immediately. In other cases, we pull the PMS every so often to see if there's any latest changes there. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that the content that you have around your property is always fresh. For rates and availabilities, we always pull directly from the PMS themselves. So if someone is searching for particular dates and they're looking for what's available, we're actually calling, for instance, the OwnerRes APIs and retrieving that in there. For us, we don't use any widgets. I'm against widgets as much as possible, mainly because one, it looks inconsistent. If you look on a page and you see this really well-designed page and you see this widget there that has different fonts, has different colors, the navigation looks a little different, that feels a little bit odd to the user. So we try to rebuild everything from the ground up and work really closely with our PMS partners to not use widgets altogether. Another reason why is we track everything on the page. And we send all this information to Google Analytics. So we're able to know how far the user has got down the funnel. And when we're using the widgets there, we don't see what's happening, what's the interactions are like. So we're not able to iterate on how we make that booking experience better. And kind of the last part is for us, like I mentioned, we spend a lot of time on optimizing for mobile. And we don't want the same experience for those widgets to be the same on desktop and mobile. So we'll change the interactions around. And when we use the widgets, we just found that we weren't able to control the experience as much there. So small little things that we obsess over. And really, at the very end of it, you really want to be conversion focused. You want your sites to be SEO optimized. You want Google's crawlers to be able to go through your entire page, understand what the structure of it is, who you're targeting to, so that they're able to serve you in search for the right people that are looking for it. And ultimately, you want a seamless booking experience. All right. Um, I have a couple of test cases for some of our users on the next slide. Um, Most notably there, I think on the far left one, we had OC Adventure kind of move over from using the PMS sites over to us, and they saw a 75% lift in conversion in just 6 weeks. That's massive. I did not expect them to come back to us in such a short amount of time and be able to have so much success on our platform. And we have many others that have achieved even 40% direct bookings in the first few months there. And it's really around providing them with the right tools, the right skills to really be able to really convert more folks there. On folks on the co-hosting side, direct booking sites is a great way to talk about your service. What other way to really showcase that you're a a good co-host or property manager for them to then to show your portfolio, to show your reviews, to be able to show your brand in the best way possible. So we have a lot of coasters that will actually add additional co-hosting pages alongside as like a tab or a menu marker that links them to a co-hosting page, and you can even have embedded forms in there as well too. But that's a great way to even land more co-hosting clients. And kind of lastly, I did want you guys to have resources available to you. It's kind of hard to see, but we have 42 tips on how to drive direct bookings. I know it's super, super tiny. So if you go to the next slide, Nikki, you can download, oh, there. Yeah. You can download this guide. There's 42 tips. It talks also about some of the frameworks and some of the foundational pieces that you should have in place even prior to doing this. So it covers, first off, you need to have a PMS if you're really interested in getting direct bookings, because if you don't have a PMS, you don't have a way to pull live rates. You don't have a way to block all your calendars on the OTA, a way to message the user automatically. So there's a lot of ways to really, you should definitely have a PMS if you're really interested in direct bookings. Don't take payments off PayPal or whatever. That's not a great way to run your business. Awesome. So kind of in summary, really know who your guest avatar is. Spend time on this. It may seem trivial. It may seem like, gosh, this is not meaningful work, but it makes a huge difference on your marketing. Two, make sure that when you're designing your site, it's high converting. You really want to focus on conversion. You may want to talk about things to do and the marketing and that stuff, but really think through what a guest goes through and how do you want to make sure that they have the information they need. You might want to include things like FAQs, for instance, to make sure that all the questions are answered. You may want to have chatbots in there that helps a guest be able to contact you directly on the site. So really think through what the guest is going through as they're booking through, and how do you decrease the friction there. Three, capture emails. No matter which tactic you're using, email is one of the most effective ways to make sure that you're staying in touch with your users. If you email them, make sure you follow, I think it's Alex Hormozy. He sends 5 value emails before he sends 1 sale email. So before you provide them with, come back to us and here's X% off your next stay, you better be sending them 5 value added emails. And that could be, did you get a chance to visit this place? Were you able to see this? Would you eat here? Did you find this golden nugget there? And what you're doing is you're trying to provide value to them so that you're building that trust so that they know that they should trust you whenever you provide them with whatever sale hook you had there. Choose 1 or 2 marketing channels. Don't peanut butter yourself. Figure out which one works, but make sure that you commit to it long enough to figure out, oh, this didn't work for me. If you're going to try to do everything, it's not going to be effective. And then kind of leads me to my last point is really track what works. And when it does work, start to double down on it. Awesome.
Wow, that was awesome, Gil. Thank you so much. I hope you guys got massive value from this. Let me just check the chat real quick and see if we have any questions, if that's okay with you, Gil.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw one from
Aside from MailChimp, what other tools would you recommend for email sequences? That's from Anna Shapiro.
Yeah, I actually prefer Klaviyo over MailChimp. I've used both of them. The main reason is that Klaviyo, and me coming from e-commerce, Klaviyo is one of the most ubiquitous email service providers, specifically for a lot of e-commerce brands in there. And they're very event based. So you can feed it information in there and start to trigger. So you can feed it information of like when someone visits a page or doesn't visit a page or doesn't get to checkout. And then you're able to send them very targeted emails. It does all the same stuff that MailChimp does of like sending out newsletters and such. But for doing reconversion and retargeting, Klaviyo is actually a lot stronger in that. I believe they also have the ability to do SMS as well too. But I find that to be more effective than MailChimp.
Well, that's definitely valuable for sure. Okay, great. That's the only question we had. Unless anybody wants to drop one in there. We'll give you just a second to do that. But Gail, I learned some really great tips. Thank you so much. I'm going to be going to my marketing team at our management company and definitely talk to them about some of these things. And we're doing a lot, but I just learned some good stuff. So thank you so much for your time. We
Yeah.
don't have any other questions coming through. Anything you want to leave them with?
No, I think like to your last point there is like I think you have to first have the good foundational pieces intact first. And really that's when you start to be able to experiment with different things. Like I mentioned a lot of more advanced tactics of like running ads and retargeting and making lookalike audiences. I would say that that's the next bucket there. But once you have your engine running and you're trying different things out and you have some successes there, that's when you have the affordance to try out more things. What you don't want to do is like try out everything all together there. So hopefully our listeners got a lot of value out of this. If you're interested, we do have our podcast Book Solid. We also have our Instagram Crafted Stays, where we'll actually take small excerpts from our longer form because I know our attention span has been a lot shorter more recently in the last decade or so. So we find that a lot of users prefer just watching our reels on Instagram and just getting those like golden nuggets there too. So there's a lot of ways to really consume this content, but always learn. Like just consistently like keep your ears to it, and try to figure out like what are people trying nowadays.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Again, I am Nikki Rosenberg. You guys can find me on Facebook. I'm a savvy STR agent in Florida. I am Invest with Nikki on Instagram. Happy to connect if you're wanting to just learn more about how to get into short-term rentals, how to purchase a short-term rental, different strategies on how to do so. And if you need help with property management, happy to discuss with you guys for my company, Sela. Thank you so much for being here today. You guys have an amazing day.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.